Last time Lance was here, Alabama was a football school. Welcome back, Lance.
Yeah, if you would have told me that there's one team from the ACC in the Final Four and one team from the SEC that will be in Phoenix, I didn't see this coming.
Browning?
I don't know who invented the joke, but I've heard it told enough now. Somebody is passing this one around. But I had an Auburn fan at church yesterday say, well, I'm just glad now that Saban's gone, Alabama's joined us in being a basketball school. So since you said it and I've heard it other places, the joke is going around. That's funny. I'll give them credit, but did not see this one coming either. Not going to pretend like there was a time where I saw him in the Sweet 16. That was it for me.
You know, when we did pre and post on Saturday, it's just amazing when you get to this time of year, when you have an NC State team that loses 7 of their final 9 games, when you have an Alabama team that loses 4 of their final 6 going into this tournament, and they just look at times unbeatable, especially NC State. And I know we'll get to DJ Burns and their matchup coming up with Zach Edey, but man, the way these teams are playing right now, but it might not matter because UConn, who lost their 2 best players from the national championship team last year, looks unbeatable right now.
They do. Odds not in the favor of Cinderella escaping Saturday in Glendale and being there Monday night for the national championship. But men, it's the NCAA tournament, so anything can happen. So Alabama's there for the first time ever, and we've got some video to show you. Forrester's going to show you. You pick one, Forrester. This is Nate Oates down on the court getting the announcement and the trophy. First off, week confetti game.
Oh, yeah? The Staples Center's out of confetti?
Out at the West Regional.
Yeah.
And no reason to have any there right now.
We're stocked up.
It ends up the confetti's going to come out of some Gatorade coolers in the back. The players actually throwing it.
Wow, that is cheap.
Damn, the A-10 even had a better fall down when there was 13 minutes left in the game.
Is this the Conference USA tournament or the West Regional?
So Powerade dumps is what that was of confetti, and that was it. But then I always loved these. They let the freshman Jaron Stevenson, who had such a big game, walk around and advance Alabama out on the bracket here. How huge was he in the win over North Carolina?
Well, you know, I just,
Clemson.
Latrell Wrightsell going down obviously was a big loss for Alabama, but Grant Nelson plays his best game against North Carolina. Jaron was unbelievable against Clemson. And, you know, who's next? Who's going to be that guy that steps up possibly against UConn? I heard Seth Greenberg saying this morning, and I think I kind of alluded to this Saturday night, if UConn's going to get beat, now look, if Zach Edey shoots 22 free throws like he did yesterday, then anything can happen. But if they're going to get beat, Alabama is one of those teams that could hit 15 or 16 threes because right now 44% through the tournament through the first 4 games. This is a dangerous team when they're hot. We've said this before.
They finished the game. They were 1 of 13 at one point, Dunaway, when you were sitting there watching. I don't know if it felt 1 of 13 against Clemson for you. Did that feel 1 of 13?
Oh, yeah, because Mark Sears missed his first – they weren't all threes, but he missed his first 7 shots.
He did. 1 of 13 from beyond the arc at one point and finished 15 of 23. Now, as you were sitting there watching, did the end of the game feel 15 of 23? It's like everything they threw up went in.
Yeah, and some of them were from the logo.
That's
an oversized
logo.
But
I talked about the Alex Dillard last 3 from Sears was just, I mean, that was balls out. I mean, that was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that guy's range is incredible. I mean, not only is he turned into such a great three-point shooter, his range is nuts.
I'll tell you what you don't want to happen, though. And Sears is undersized, but the guy is 23 points every single game, including against Clemson. You don't want people to start telling Sears and Jaron Stevenson, hey, I think you guys are going to sneak in the second round.
Yeah.
Because this Alabama team could be really, really good next year. And the same with Grant Nelson.
Just that scene there, though, guys, I'll tell you, I've done this a long time, and I said this pre-game, post-game, thanks for letting me be out there. I appreciate everyone up here letting me be out there for that. That's a top five sports moment for me in my lifetime.
Well, you said it Saturday night. You didn't think you'd ever see Alabama in this spot. I did think, based on Nate Oates, I didn't think it would be this year. I did think they got a favorable draw, and I had them in the Sweet 16, but I didn't see them, beating North Carolina and then beating a red-hot Clemson team. But I did think that Nate Oates would sneak them into a Final Four.
At some point.
I just didn't think it was going to be now, and now you can start to say, well, damn, you look at what he's done 3 of the 4 last years, and coming off a Final Four berth, what is the future for this Alabama program?
Yeah, only bright. I can't imagine it falling off the way Nate Oates has started this thing.
I mean, where would you guys stack it, like moving forward in the SEC? I mean, Rick Barnes has obviously got a machine, but they can't do anything in the postseason.
I mean, Elite Eight and nothing to shy of.
No, it's not.
It's a good run. But
and if you're going to get officials that let Zach Eady build a house in the lane, I don't know how you're going to beat them, by the way.
You're
anyway.
not getting, and normally he doesn't get officiated like that, at least the games I've watched.
Yeah. Look, the SEC is only getting better. I think Florida's ascending. I think Tennessee, like Lance said, is a machine. I think Auburn's really good. And I think Alabama is in that group. I don't know if Kentucky is right now. I think Kentucky's got some fixing to do. They were a 3 seed, though. Let's don't pretend like, they had a terrible regular season. But I think as long as Nate Oates is the coach at Alabama, he's going to have them regularly in the contention for the regular season conference championship and going deep in the tournament.
Yeah, and landmine believer, we're built for next year, actually. 2 McDonald's All-Americans, another top 40 recruit, and a whole host of this team that can come back. There's Nate Oates arriving back at the team hotel after carrying that trophy. I think he slept with that trophy. And the team coming back and everyone enjoying the trip back to the Omni there in L.A.
Boy, if you're a Kentucky fan, though, and you look at this, and this is the guy, and I've told the story before, me and Brunner at dinner last year, SEC basketball tournament in Nashville, and we were sitting next to a father-son combo of Kentucky, and they were like, we want Nate Oates. That is the guy. We want Calipari out. And then after Calipari loses this year to Oakland, the guy's on a hot seat next year. But for Kentucky not even to be in the conversation. But if you would have asked me before this tournament, best chance Final Four for this conference, I would have gone Tennessee 1. I would have gone Kentucky 2. I would have gone Auburn 3. And I don't know where I would have put Alabama.
You'd have had him in front of Florida, right? Florida was a 7.
Yeah, I would have had him in front of Florida. But, still, just to say that out loud.
Yeah.
And I know I was part of the hype video to motivate the Alabama team.
The University of Alabama produced hype video.
But the fact of the matter is, the final 6 games going into this tournament, they had given up 97 points per game. So it wasn't like I was on an island. You guys would have agreed that the defense wasn't good enough to get them to a Final Four.
I was talking to somebody who was part of that production crew. They said, we chose between one of 6 bites we had saved from Lance.
I think I was the only one, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, that had Alabama in the Sweet 16. Did you have them in the Sweet 16?
I had the Sweet 16. Adam was in North Carolina.
I had them in the Sweet 16.
Whatever I can do to motivate. Look, it's a great moment for the state.
Yes.
I saw today on AL.com, Alabama Final Four gear available now. Yeah. We'll probably have the dude talking about an Alabama Final Four ball on this show in the next couple of days.
Hey, and we've got our own gear. If you want to remember this moment in history, you can go to nextround.store and nextround.store and just celebrate your fandom like we have. Just check it out, nextround.store. And, hey, history, man. History was made, and you go and enjoy the history there for the Alabama program, nextround.store, nextround.store. We'll get to some reaction from the coach and stuff. There's that T-shirt right there. See you in Phoenix.
Oh, I didn't know we had gear.
Yeah,
I'm part of the merch committee. That looks good.
History made right there. Comes out really quickly after an event sometimes. So there you go, man. Right there. Nextround.store. I'll tell you this before we get to some reaction. I had a chance to sit right next to the Crimson Tide Sports Network radio crew. Chris Stewart had a funny call because you guys were talking about, how many shots they missed three-point line. Jaron Stevenson early in the game against Clemson shot 4 shots, and one of them was so far. I mean, it almost landed on the Clemson bench.
No, it's like it caught wind. It was one of the worst shots.
Yeah,
it's something like shot clock's going down, and you've got I don't know, freaking. Alonzo Mourning back in the day shooting a 3. I don't know, or Shaq. I mean, it looked like it caught wind.
Full court buzzer beaters. Sometimes are closer than
I
that
never
3.
would have shot again if I was Jaron Stevenson after that shot.
But he kept shooting. But of his first 4 shots, 2 were air balls and 2 were made 3s. And Chris Stewart, after the second made 3, said, the youngster Jaron Stevenson, 2 for 4 from 3, and none of them have touched the rim yet.
He's absolutely right, yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. At what point, Dunaway, as you sat courtside, did you know Alabama was going to win that game?
I've got this history of landmining things.
I'm well aware. It's one reason I asked.
Were you about to fire out a tweet? History is made.
Dunaway was so.
Because I know you were trying to come up with something creative and witty to fire out.
Yeah, like a Jim Nance line.
You know what I ended up firing out?
What?
A basketball emoji, and then a GIF of Michael Scott happily crying, and that was all I said. That was all I said.
Did you get tears?
Words were not needed.
Words were not needed.
I was working, but I was emotional in the final few seconds when it looked like it was going to happen, and then I was emotional watching the kids cut down the net. You don't go sound up on the video, but you may hear some sniffles behind my iPhone there.
Well, what about?
I didn't think it would ever happen in my lifetime, and I know you say you, and I believe Nate Oates is a great coach too, but it is so hard to get to the Final Four. And I was going over with Taylor, in my lifetime, 1976, what I think it was the best team in Alabama history with Leon Douglas and that crew against Indiana. That's who they had to face in the Sweet 16. Indiana did not lose to anybody.
Yeah, maybe the best team in college basketball history, some would argue, yeah.
Did a tear fall on my eye right here?
Yeah, I noticed it on your face, like a little tear on your face.
I didn't know it was coming out.
Emotional moment, yeah.
A couple of Wimps team, I was telling, Taylor doesn't even know who Hank Gathers is. I said, this guy died on the court. And who did Alabama have to face in the Sweet 16? That team who was playing for Hank Gathers. And Alabama did a great job defensively against them, but still lost.
Yep.
But without Hank Gathers, they weren't going to. I know they caught fire, and Jeff Fry and Bo Kimball were unbelievable.
They were playing with a mission, man. That was a tough team to run into.
Alabama was not going to make the Final Four. There was no chance of them making the Final Four.
Yeah, but if one of the
that was the Sweet 16, they'd have been 40 minutes away if they'd have won that game.
Against UNLV, who beat that loyalty by 40.
You tell me right now, if Purdue
you play the games,
zero chance.
If Klingon or Edey gets hit by a bus today, neither one of those teams will win in the championship.
Yeah. But
they can play for them all they want.
I'm just talking about getting past the Sweet 16.
Right.
Maybe Wimp's best team runs into Billy Donovan in a hot shooting night in Louisville from three-point land, the newly designed three-point line that had come out. I mean, Alabama's run into some walls.
Yeah, but last year, that was a Final Four team. They had the path.
And what did they have going on? All that off-the-field stuff. It was a weight of the world on them.
But I'm just saying, I think
it's so hard to get there.
I did not see it this year, but Nate's going to have them in a situation. What about, so you've been hanging out with the broadcast crew, Chris, Brian, Tom, any of those guys shed tears?
Oh, yes, 100%.
Well, I'm sure Passing did. I mean, Passing he spilled some blood for this program.
I'm sure probably Tom and Chris. I mean, traveling all around. Yeah. I mean, how many games have they been on the call for? And
they've seen some bad basketball.
And, they fell in love with this program a long time ago. And to see them get to this moment, to me, a Final Four is like getting to a Super Bowl. Whether you close the deal or not, it's one of those things that it is immortalized and you'll never forget.
Yeah, 22 years, I think Chris and Passing have been doing the Alabama radio together. 22 years already. They still seem like a young broadcasting crew, but 22 years. And they've been together a long, long time. I can't stop it from crying now.
Is it allergies, Jim? Or are you really that emotional?
Allergies are wearing me out.
Are they really? Are you going to cry too?
I am not going to cry.
Dunaway is.
If I had Alabama to win that region at like 15-1, I would.
It just, and I know this is the most arrogant thing you could possibly say as a sports fan, right?
Okay.
But there have been so many football championships in my lifetime. But you watch the NCAA tournament, it's one of the great sporting events, and your team has never made it to the Final Four. And whatever happens in Phoenix happens in Phoenix. I feel like you. Man, you're sitting there watching that the other night, and you just sit there and you just like, this is unreal. This is happening for Alabama. This is unreal that it's finally happening.
I think this is the year. You lose to UConn, even if you lose by 30, you're probably disappointed right after the game. You look back and you're like, what an incredible year. Now, moving forward after this year, it's about what you can do once you get to the Final Four. But this year, you were playing with house money.
Can I tell you when I thought Alabama was going to win this game? The moment I thought Alabama was going to the Final Four. And the reason I asked you was I was curious if this jumped out at you as well. And when I give you the score, you're going to say, how are you this confident, Brown? But it was the 7:47 mark, and it was 59-53 Alabama. Okay, Bama up 6. They come down the floor. Gerard makes the 3 to cut it 2-3.
Oh, speaking of getting into a zone, by the way.
Yeah, I kick and shoot. Riley Griffin, though, did a tremendous job defensively on him down the stretch. So Gerard makes the 3 to cut it to 3. Griffin comes back and makes a 3 10 seconds later. It takes 10 seconds for Alabama to respond to push the lead back out to 6. Gerard comes back down, makes another 3 to cut it back to 3, 62-59. Stevenson comes back and makes another 3 to make it 65-59.
And an unreal pass from Mark Sears to get it to him in the corner.
Yep. And then the chef misses the 3. And I'm like, Alabama has baited them into their game now because now you got one of your big guys out there firing away. It's just 3 after 3, and then that's when Sears came back down and made it another 3, 68-59, Lance. And I'm like, Bama's got the lead, and they have now baited Clemson into their game. Clemson dictated the game in the first half, and Bama baited them back in.
Yeah, I see what your point is there, but I did not see it until Gerard hit the 3 to cut it to 3 under 2 minutes. And then when Pringle goes right back and gets the and one and then hits the free throw, that's when I could feel that Alabama was going to move on.
Yeah, we'll talk about all this as we continue on. But my way to wellness observation of the day, Scheffner. I mean, honest to goodness, if you've never seen anybody play a basketball game and we're just on the playground, I leaned over to Rosie Langello from WSFA and I said, Rosie, seriously, if we're on the playground right now, that Scheffner kid would be the last guy picked in a basketball game.
Schefflin.
And the dude is so athletic for his size. He looks like a guy that would have worn the tough skins or the Husky jeans.
Well, he wears a medium shirt, though.
Yeah, but I mean, he's still kind of thick, but man, he could jump out of the gym, and he is a really, really good player.
He is, but book by cover.
Oh, yeah.
If we'd never seen anybody pick up a basketball and we just all went out there and were picking teams in the playground, we'd have been like, I'm not that kid.
I ain't taking big Rory McIlroy.
The last guy would be like, Chunky Rory.
Chunky McIlroy. I guess I'll take him.
Nate Oates and the podium after with a net around that's always the greatest shot, right? Whether it's a player or a coach with a net around the neck. Here's the Alabama coach about going to the Final Four.
Given your journey, what does this mean to you to be at this point?
I mean, it's surreal. You go back 11 years ago, and I won a state championship at Romulus High back in Detroit area. So it hasn't been that long. And, Bobby Hurley gives me a chance. And obviously the Hurley family's got a lot of respect for high school coaches. Their dad's a Hall of Fame coach. And, I've caught a few breaks, and it's ironic I get to coach against Danny. I don't know if "get's" the correct word because they got a pretty good team, but when I was a kid, big basketball fan. I used to, gonna date myself a little bit. You had the VHS tapes, so I had every one of the shining moments labeled on a VHS tape, so I could go back and watch that thing all summer. Then you start to grow up in the coaching profession, and you just want to be at the Final Four, be in the hotel lobby, so I can see the big name coaches that are there, and somehow I caught enough breaks. I'm coaching in one, which is unreal. I mean, give hope to a lot of high school coaches tonight, that's for sure.
Yeah, and 3 of the coaches that are in the Final Four are former high school basketball coaches. The guy from NC State, Hurley from UConn, and Nate Oates. Pretty crazy that they all coached in high school. It's just it's not that long ago. He was, as he told us one of the first times he's ever on the show, he was selling candy bars as a fundraiser for his high school basketball team's uniforms and trips like that. 11 years later, he's won a couple of SEC regular season, a couple of SEC tournament, and now a West Regional. That's a long way from selling those great candy bars that are in chunks with the slithers of almond in them that you charge the students $1 a pop.
Those things are actually pretty underrated. But just an incredible job out of him. Matt Painter had so much pressure on him coming into this tournament. He gets Purdue to a Final Four. Dan Hurley, like him or hate him, is obviously one of the best coaches in college basketball. But Kevin Keatts, again, 9 elimination games they've won. If he loses any of those games in the ACC tournament or first round against Texas Tech, well, I guess he couldn't because he had the 2-year extension, that guy wouldn't have been the coach at NC State. And now he's coming up Final Four. This reminds me of Frank Martin in South Carolina, though.
A little bit, yeah. It's got the Dennis Felton vibes getting into the tournament, but then to make the run feels more like Frank Martin.
Who shortly afterwards, 3 years later, 4 years later, he was out.
Yeah, they gave him some more time, but they extended the contract to Lance's point, and they kind of got in that contract they couldn't buy out anymore. It was actually pretty cool to see Nate Oates kind of process that in real time, that he was in the Final Four. I mean, I knew he was, but you saw it. I mean, you shake hands, you celebrate, you cut down nets.
It's nonstop.
It's nonstop, photos and locker room celebration. And that felt like the first moment he just had to sit down and exhale and say, oh, my gosh, I'm in the Final Four.
Yeah. And then there's Nick Pringle. I can tell you, from people that work at the University of Alabama to fans, the question I got asked the most when I was out, and just luckily I was staying at the team hotel.
Okay.
Coincidence, it ends up being at the team hotel where I was lodged. So I'm walking around, and fans who are there who are pretty high up boosters would ask, did you guys know that Pringle was on that flight to Spokane when you put little T on that flight? And I was like, what? No, it was just coincidence.
What kind of operation do you think we were on?
And they would look at me. They would like, it was coincidence that little T was on that flight. You guys got tipped on that Pringle was going to be on that flight, and you put little T on that flight. And I was like, total coincidence.
And by the way, it was a connector to Spokane. I don't think those are those are easy to get. I mean, those generally probably go through Denver.
Yeah, did Little T come from Birmingham or Atlanta?
Birmingham.
Yeah.
To Denver.
Okay.
Yeah. Denver to Spokane. Brown is our postseason flight.
I was just going to say, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised based on where Pringle was in the doghouse. They made him go to Atlanta.
Could have.
To Denver.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's his one route. But and this is the picture that everyone was talking about. They were like, at first I thought it was a spoof, and then I saw the shoes, and I was like, I knew it wasn't the shoes. But yeah, that was a little T on the way to Spokane, and it was a coincidence. I'm not lying to you guys in the lobby or the bar at the hotel. It was a coincidence that Taylor was on there with that iconic shot. If they're in the Final Four, and if they were putting a photo album out like Sports Illustrated used to do in the 80s,
right,
that would be one of the iconic shots.
Do we have a story for you? Yeah.
Well, we don't know how much.
What if I told you one of your big players in the tournament didn't even fly with the
commercial.
team?
Without his 16 and 11, they don't beat Clemson.
Oh, they don't beat,
absolutely.
They don't beat North Carolina the way he played Baycott, and they don't beat Clemson.
And he drew 13 fouls.
Yeah.
I mean, P.J. Hall fouled out because, in large part, of Nick Pringle.
And that was massive.
Oh, it was huge.
And
Huge turning point.
And he was a walking soundbite. And I believed this before the tournament. I told his family this at senior day. He's one of my favorite players on the team because I don't know if you guys, if you've been with us 14 years, you guys know I'm a little bit of a head case. I get a little
bit.
I ride on an emotional roller coaster.
Sure.
My man Nick Pringle rides a roller coaster as well emotionally.